New album reaction, man. Another episode. Hopefully everyone's doing good. For this episode, we're gonna go over the new album by Mike, Showbiz. So this is a new album he released like a few weeks ago. This is a very new album. And I think this is like the second album I'm reacting to from Mike's catalog. I think the last time we did Pinball, another Mike album. Before I go over this album review, I'm gonna go over some of my music, what I have coming up. The new song for February 4th, Microphone Check. That's the newest song that I have dropping for February 4th. Check that out, 12 o'clock a.m. right on the dot. If you haven't heard it already, Demonetization, that's the most recent song that I have out at the moment. Available everywhere on my YouTube page, on my SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes. You can find it everywhere. Plenty more music to drop for the future. We're gonna go over the new album by Mike, Showbiz, just like every other episode. 4 tracks off the album, just a snippet of each track. Then I'm gonna start talking about the album, breaking it down in my own point of view. Also, I got a rating at the end of the video out of 10. Once again, Showbiz by Mike. This is a new album, 2025. One of the first albums to drop for this year. Yeah, so all the songs I'm playing is all off of his YouTube page. The first track I'll play, this one's called Man in the Mirror.
Damn, I deserve with you. I was never by the saying I'm a curb kicker. I'ma keep it 10 grand out of earth.
This one's called Belly One.
Should be cool, but it never deterred. I ain't sued, expect you to hurt me. You a crew, got my enemies word.
This one's called The Rock.
I'm with you. So I feel like I'm holding on me, I'm rocking with you.
And the last track I'll play, this one's called Watered Down. Showbiz by Mike. It's a new album, his first album of 2025. This one kind of dropped out of nowhere. I think I heard a little bit about it last year, but like maybe I forgot just a bit. It's nothing really different from what he's done before. The one difference that I've noticed, he has a lot more songs on this album. I don't think he's made an album with 24 tracks before. Most of the songs is like 2 minutes or less. Kind of reminds me of Jay Dilla's Donuts from way back in the day. Legendary producer from Detroit, Michigan, who passed away like 10 years ago. He's well known as the greatest producer of all time, if not like top 3. That Donuts album by Jay Dilla reminds me of this album, just with like the length, the amount of songs that he puts on the album, and the fact that every song's like 2 minutes long, if not shorter. A lot of instrumentals going on throughout the album, throughout the track listed. Not every song is a completely normal song. He has a lot of instrumentals going on and a lot of experimental moments where there's a whole bunch of random sounds going on in the record to create like a different sound, different from like what you're used to hearing from Mike, but not really, because he's the type of artist to do that experimental stuff. It's nothing really new. The fact that the album's 24 songs long, every song is like really short, gives like a different sound altogether. Usually when I'm listening to Mike, I've noticed that he's very complex with his ideas and the messages that he's trying to bring across with his music, with his songwriting. He reminds me of Earl Sweatshirt. I think it's more about how his like voice sounds and how he paces his lines when he raps, how he like drags a syllable on to like another line. Everything's kind of like slowed down just a bit. That reminds me of Earl Sweatshirt. And he's homies with Earl Sweatshirt. Earl brought up Mike. I think he's like the main reason why Mike's even famous in the first place. So like he probably looks up to Earl Sweatshirt. That's why he sounds a lot like him. He sounds a lot like Earl on this record. Doesn't really change his voice at all too much. Kind of like using that same pacing flow that Earl Sweatshirt uses in his music. Normally his music's very complex with how he tries to put his metaphors and similes together. It takes the listener just a little bit of time to understand the true meaning of what he's trying to say. He simplifies it big time on this album. It's like almost the complete opposite. I think with the instrumentals and the production, that stays complex. The way he's sampling for his beats, that stays complex. And even just the whole art imagery, like with the videos, the artwork cover for his album, super complex and super artsy. It's more about his like rapping and his songwriting. When you're listening to like the vocals and his punchlines, everything is very simple and direct. Everybody in the room can understand like right away. He doesn't really do too much metaphors and similes that takes a bunch of time to like understand. You understand everything he's saying like immediately, even with his like way of rapping. So like the way he raps, sometimes it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying because he sort of like mumbles when he raps just a bit. He has that sort of style. Once you understand what he's saying, you get the metaphor, the simile right away. So he goes more with that style in terms of like songwriting, and it makes it a little bit easier to understand the messages that he's trying to push across his music. I mean, it doesn't take you like a long time to understand what he's trying to do. And that's just with like the songwriting and the lyrics. Everything else is pretty artsy and complex. The music videos that he's putting together, the production, the way he's sampling, putting his beats together. The production on here is very complex. Also, a lot of beats that are closer to experimental. They sound nothing like what you would typically hear from rap beats in today's game. Brings like a different sound to the album altogether. Just makes the music sound different, something unexpected, which is always a good thing in music, in my opinion, when you're being surprised by what you're getting and you're not just getting something that you expect. It's like the opposite of most rap music that you'll hear today. The album is very, very artsy, poetic, maybe outside of his like rapping. The way he creates his like visuals with the artwork cover and the music videos, it's very strange and something that's like that no one else is doing. He has a very unique style. The way he puts everything together with his music, the visuals of his music, his whole style is just very different. Maybe that has to do with looking up to Earl Sweatshirt as like a role model, because Earl Sweatshirt has always been that type of rapper, always rapping the way he wants to rap and never really looking at other styles and maybe taking a little bit of it, putting it into his own. When you listen to Earl Sweatshirt's music, it's so like original and so unique, even amongst the Odd Future members. If you like listen to his music and compare it to everybody else's music, it's always super different. Mike is the same way. He not only sounds like Earl Sweatshirt when he raps, but he's also very unique, just like Earl Sweatshirt. When you listen to a Mike song, it's gonna always be something super different. It's gonna sound nothing like anything you've heard before. You can't really compare him to any other rapper, and he displays that in a really complex way on this album, which makes the album stand out amongst the rest of the rap albums that we're getting in a good way. For the most part, man, I enjoyed the album. I think the uniqueness of it is a big part of why I enjoyed the album so much. It stands out. It's a sound that you don't really get that often, which is like a really good part about it. The only thing I don't like about the album, how monotone his vocals are. He's really good songwriter. Just his music mind is incredible. He has great music ideas and concepts. When he's writing his music, we're like listening to his punchlines. The things that he's actually saying in his lines are pretty complex. They're easy to understand. They're significant enough to like help people in their own personal life. Whenever you're getting lines like that from rappers, it's always a great thing in my opinion. The only thing I don't like though is how monotone Mike can get sometimes with his vocals. It gets like a little bit too boring and almost like it puts you to sleep. It's the same problem with Earl Sweatshirt. A lot of people always thought that Earl was a little bit too boring. Like all the people I ever talked to about Earl Sweatshirt, the reason why it was hard for them to get into his music is because of how monotone he was, and it made his music like a little bit boring. Everything's like super slow, emotional, super serious, depressing, you could even say. That was it though. Like that would make people like bored, make them not want to listen to Earl's music. The other members of Odd Future, a lot more entertaining to listen to. Earl Sweatshirt, I always thought he was the better rapper. He took it so serious that it made his music a little bit boring. Mike does the same thing, gets too serious with it. His like monotone style of like rapping, everything's like super slow. The way he's hitting his syllables, everything is slowed down. Like it almost like it puts you to sleep. So that's my only issue about Mike. The album, his style altogether, the sampling on the production on this album is probably what saves the monotone of Mike. The fact that the beats that he's rapping on they kind of like stand out in a lot of ways because of how different they sound, how they're like being pieced together in a very strange way, creating like a unique sound out of the beats. I feel like that saved Mike's monotone style of rapping just a bit. It made his songs more enjoyable to listen to because of the production. production. It's just the way Mike raps, like the way he like hits his syllables. What he's actually saying is pretty like crazy. Like this guy can come up with some pretty strong lines. Another thing that reminds me of Earl Sweatshirt, as boring as his like flow was, how he pieced together his syllables, what he was actually saying was pretty crazy. Super high level in terms of lyricism. That's probably like the only thing I didn't like about the album. His monotone style flow can make some songs boring at times, but that's about it. Besides that, every beat is pretty strong. The beats are good enough to kind of like outdo the monotoneness. You kind of oversee the monotone and you just enjoy the music because of like how unique the sound is altogether. Honestly, I think the beats are like the main highlight of the album. I don't think the beats outdid Mike's vocals. I was saying a lot about how monotone Mike can be at times. You take the monotone out, you listen to this guy rap, yo, he goes off, man. He definitely has some lines that make you think. A lot of like real lines, makes you think about life. Talks a lot about like family and like relationships and a lot of people he grew up with. Success in the music industry has changed his life in like a really positive way. He has like a lot more money now. Just all the money he's making off of his music career is like changing his life for the better. That's mainly what he's talking about throughout the album. And the way he puts all of that information together into like rhymes and bars is pretty incredible. Legitimate lyricist. Definitely can rap. And like some cases he might actually be better than Earl Sweatshirt. I always thought Earl was like his role model, bringing him up. He might actually be better than Earl Sweatshirt. He might be doing his style better than Earl, which is pretty crazy to say. And I think I've said that before in the past. He definitely can rap. So I'm not gonna say that the beats outdid the vocals. I also won't say the vocals outdid the beats. I'd say it's pretty like even between the two. I think it's a strong performance from both sides. The production and the vocals making the album better altogether. I enjoyed the experimentalness, the uniqueness of the beats, the songs and the sounds that are being sampled. There's a lot of sounds in there that I've never heard before. Just sounds that doesn't even sound like music. It literally sounds like the producers sampling random sounds instead of just doing the traditional sample, like sampling like Michael Jackson or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, making like a beat that we've all heard like a million times. There's 24 beats on this album and every beat is super different from what I've heard before. Man, there's 24 of them on this one. So the fact that they're able to do that 24 times is pretty incredible. There isn't really a beat on here that I didn't like. There's maybe like 2 out of the 24 that I thought were just like whatever. There isn't really a lot of bad things I can say about this album. I just think like his vocals can get a little bit boring at times because of how monotone and super slow and serious his like songwriting can be overall. But really besides that, I think it's a strong album overall. One of the most unique albums I've heard almost ever, especially when it comes to like rap albums. He doesn't follow any formula or any concepts that mainstream labels follow. Even though I think he is under a label, he definitely does his thing. This sounds more like an indie album. All the ideas that are lined up throughout this album sound like they're coming right from Mike. It's not like a super large group of people trying to come up with ideas and he has like songwriters. Everything is literally coming from Mike's ideas. After saying all of that, in terms of a rating, I'm giving this one 8.3 out of 10. It's definitely above an 8 because of all of the things I said about it, how unique, how strong his like lyricism is, how unique the production is, and just how unique the album is overall. It's not above a 9 just because like I think Mike has a lot more in the tank. He can rap a lot harder than what he did on this album. He has a lot more in the tank to put together an album that's gonna like destroy anything he's ever done in his past. There's a lot of potential that he has, I think, with his style and how he puts together his music. He can be a big time artist in the game. I'm pretty sure he's still like in his mid-20s, so he has some time to like grow and become a better artist. For that reason, I'm giving it an 8.3 out of 10. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. I really appreciate you guys watching. I got a lot more content on the way, a lot more music on the way. Check out the new song set for February 4th, Microphone Check. That's the new song that I'm dropping for February 4th. Plenty more music to come afterwards. More content. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. Most importantly, like out of all things. I appreciate you guys watching. That's all I got for this episode, man. Peace.